So standing up, I'm doing mostly lower body today, which is why I'm so far back. So you're actually going to be able to see the whole time. Starting off, we're just going to start warming up the lower body. I'm going to put my feet a bit wider apart here so that I can do some sumo squats. For that, my toes are pointed out a bit, sort of at 45-degree angles here. And then I'm going to be engaging the muscles through the outer hip so that my knees are still tracking over my second and third toe as I lower all the way down here. If you like to pause at the bottom, you could pause at the bottom, squeeze your knees out just a little bit further back, and then power up. So coming down, just to the depth that's comfortable for you. Doesn't have to look like me. It could be lower, it could be higher. World's your oyster. Squeezing the knees back if you enjoy that, and then coming up. Let's do 3 more, just for that lovely round 5 number. Guess it's not round at all, but it's an easy number to work with. Beautiful. And now let's do a couple of lunges. So with the lunges, I like to keep my hips very square to the floor underneath me, as well as the wall in front of me. I'm going to take a nice step forward. I'll come down either to 90 degrees or a height that's comfortable for me. Don't want to bang your knee on the floor or anything. And then come up and back. So these are front lunges, stepping forward. I like to check in with my core, make sure my core is engaged the whole time I'm going down and up. And what the core engagement does is gives a lot of stability to my lower back and pelvis. Nice foundation to work from. You don't want your knees going too far forward here because that could put a lot of stress on them. You also might not want to be too far back because that could be a little bit difficult to keep your balance. One last front lunge here. And now we'll do some back lunges. So I'm just stepping backwards for a little bit of variety here. Stepping back, same deal though, keeping my hips square, keeping my core engaged, drawing my belly button in tight, engaging all the way around my core. So I'm drawing in, lowering down, maintaining that engagement even as you move, and then bringing your foot back up to meet the other foot before stepping back again. Now, if you're like me, it does actually take a little bit of attention to make sure that your hips stay even with the floor underneath you, as well as that wall in front of you, imaginary or real wall. And you can also obviously always hold on to something here if if you start to feel like your balance is not where you would like it to be. Beautiful. One more on each side here. And then we have a lovely hip flexor stretch. So for the hip flexor stretch, I again am going to want one foot in front, the other foot in back. In my case, my right foot is in front so far. And from here, I'm just going to tuck my pelvis. So like my hips are a wagon wheel and I'm rolling it back, tucking the pelvis here, feeling a little stretch through the front of the back leg, in my case, the left leg. And to get that stretch, I'm engaging my lower abs, engaging glutes and hamstrings to get my pelvis into a position where I can feel that stretch here. And then from there, I'm going to reach my left arm up and over, adding a little something extra to the stretch. Breathing into it for just a moment. And then coming back up. We'll do the other side next. So now I have my left leg in front, right leg coming back. I'm tucking through my pelvis, engaging my lower abs, glutes and hamstrings to keep myself in this nice tucked pelvis position. My hip bones are still square, so my hip bones are not going asymmetrical at all. My hips aren't with one forward, one back. Nothing wonky is going on. Even though I'm tucking the pelvis, it still stays square. And then I'll lift my right arm up and over. Adding that little something extra to the stretch here. If you want to, obviously hold on to something. Give yourself that stability so you can relax into the stretch. And then coming out of it. Next, we're going to do a little quad stretch. So working off of this stretch that we gave our hip flexors, I'm now going to either hold on to my foot or I can rest my foot on an object like my stool here. So we have our already in an extended position. Like the hip flexor stretch, we're going to tuck our pelvis. And then you have that quad stretch where you're either holding or resting the foot. And you're going to really find that place where you can feel a stretch into your quads here. So into that big muscle in the front of your thigh. And you can play with the angles a bit here. So bringing your knee close together, bringing your knee a little bit further back in space. Keeping that pelvis tucked though, as we do this. Take a moment to just hang out there once you find this stretch and breathe into it. After you're here for a moment, you might need to adjust to intensify a little bit more so you can still feel the stretch. That's fine and wonderful and great. Awesome. And you can let this side go. We'll do the other side next. So holding onto my right foot now, or putting it up on a stool. And then finding the stretch for myself, either by moving the knees in together, tucking the pelvis a little bit more, moving the knee back in space. And then once you have that really glorious stretchy feeling, taking a moment to just breathe into it. See if you can breathe in a little bit longer each time you inhale, just to slow down the breath a little bit. Beautiful. And then resting that foot back down on the ground. From here, we're going to do a little bit of strengthening for our posterior chain, and then we'll go into some nice stretches for the back of our leg. So I'm going to put my hands on my stool here. You could use your desk or anything that's not going to roll away. Could also be on all fours on the ground. And I'm just going to do some leg lifts, starting with my left leg, bringing my heel up towards the ceiling. Core still engaged here. Belly button is drawn in. My transverse abdominis is working to keep everything drawn in all the way around. If you like, you can pause at the top, squeeze up a little bit higher, then come down. If this is very boring for you, you could also draw some little circles. You could draw the alphabet while you're here. Anything it takes to make it fun for you. And we'll just do 3 more here. And then we'll switch to the other side. So now my right leg is coming up. If this is not boring for you and it's starting to feel a little bit tense on your body and not like a good movement break, you can always take a little mini rest and come back to it. So we've got different levels. We have the level where you're taking a rest. We've got levels where you're doing the leg lifts. We've got pause, squeeze up higher, and we've got just stay up here. Stay up here and draw the alphabet. Hopefully that gives you a couple of options to customize it for you. Go ahead and do just 3 more here. And then we'll get to some glorious stretches. All right, my first stretch I'm going to be doing just by crossing my right leg over my left leg, and then I'm going to hinge at the hips and walk my legs down my thighs or use my support for relaxing into that stretch. This is a nice and passive stretch, but you do not want to let your lower back round. You want to keep the top of the pelvis tipping forward. Hopefully that makes sense. From the side, right leg crossed over left, tipping the top of the pelvis down here. And then once I get into that position where I feel a really good stretch, I'm going to just hang out here, support myself with my arms. And then breathe into it. The cross-legged stretch here can be a little bit intense sometimes, so feel free to come in and out of it as is comfortable for you, or come into the position where you can feel a little bit of a stretch, and then back out of it slightly. You don't want to hang out in an area that is too much of a stretch for too long. It's not comfortable, and it can actually restrict blood supply. Whenever you're ready, come on up and we'll switch sides. So now I'm standing on my right leg. I'll take my left leg, cross it over in front, and then hinge at the hips, tipping the top of the pelvis forward and supporting myself here. Gonna breathe into it. Thinking about the wonderful stretch that I'm getting from my lower body here and how infrequently I actually get to be in this position. You might sit with your legs cross-legged, but probably not with them out straight. And the variety of movement is just as important as getting a variety of colors of vegetables or, variety of mental stimulation. Your body really appreciates variety of movement to keep it functioning. Nice. Stand on up whenever you're ready. And what we'll do next is actually a figure four stretch, but we're going to do a standing variation. If you're on the ground and you would like to do the laying on your back version, that's totally fine. This is the version I'll be demonstrating today. So I'm going to take my right leg and I'm going to literally draw like a number 4 here with my legs. And then I'm going to hinge at the hips and tip forward, resting them on my stool. If your leg doesn't do this for any reason, you could certainly have the ankle lower to the point that it's comfortable for you. Key points would be to try and keep the foot flexed here and to try and keep the knee out here. So if my hand is resting on my stool to support myself and my knee doesn't really want to stay out, I could use my hand to help myself into the position very gently. Of course, always listen to your own body. Take the feedback that it is giving you as a gift and valuable information. Also to note here is I'm still hinging at my hips going forward. So from the side, this doesn't look like this. It looks more like this. Hopefully that makes sense. And let's stand on up and do the other side. I talked for so long on that side. So now I've drawn my 4 on this side with my ankle at the height that's correct for me. And I'm going to tip forward, hinging here. I'm going to check in with my foot, make sure that it's nice and flexed. Check in with my knee, make sure that it's drawn back and out to the side. And I can also use my hands to check in on my hip bones, touching this hip bone here, touching that hip bone here, making sure that they're even. So I'm not dropping one hip or raising one hip. I'm not torquing side to side at all here. One last deep breath here. And coming on up. You guys did fantastic. I hope you have a wonderful lunchtime and a fantastic afternoon. Take care, everybody.